They thought Earth was weak, insignificant, forgotten. But when the stars turned cold, humanity reminded them who we really are. They found his DNA in the wreckage and got scared. The neutral expanse, once a bustling trade corridor, now a war-ravaged graveyard. Hundreds of shattered starships float in cold silence, their twisted hulls like skeletal remains drifting through space. The darkness here feels thicker, as if it remembers what happened. A single vessel stands out among the wreckage, a massive dreadnought, larger than anything known in this part of the galaxy. Blackened, scorched, and silent, it drifts through the void with an almost haunting grace. No lights, no signal, no record of its construction. The stars themselves seem to shy away from its presence. Aboard a sleek reconnaissance ship nearby, cloaked under Siroth Dominion stealth tech, the crew stares in awe. It's not Siroth, not Council, not even Velari, one pilot whispers, voice trembling. The commander, Velrax, narrows his eyes. His scales ripple with unease. Then what is it? No one answers. As they approach, scans show no life signs, but there's a strange hum, not mechanical, something older, almost alive. Deep within the wreck's blackened metal, something pulses slowly, faint, rhythmic, like a dying heartbeat. There's no record of this vessel in Dominion databases, no signatures, no warnings. Velrax's gut tightens. This isn't just an abandoned ship, it's a tomb, a monument to something forgotten, or worse, deliberately erased. And someone, or something, left it here for a reason. The salvage team docks with the derelict under high security protocol. Inside, the air is stale but breathable. The walls are scarred from battle, melted steel, claw marks, and blast craters that speak of brutal, close-quarter combat. Dr. Cyanra, a xenogeneticist, examines the strange architecture. It's not alien, not completely. The structure, the layout, it's familiar, but twisted, like it evolved separately. Velrax disagrees. No, this is military design, efficient, ruthless, built for war. Their tension grows as they push deeper into the ship. Corpses, or what remains, lie slumped in corridors. Armor types they've never seen, weapons melted into the walls, symbols etched in blood. Cyanra kneels beside a shattered helmet. Inside, strands of hair remain. She freezes. This is mammalian. Velrax's voice sharpens. Explain. She doesn't look up. The DNA strand is carbon-based, similar to ours, but more advanced, denser, engineered for survival. This isn't alien. This is human. A chill passes through the team. That's impossible, Velrax snaps. The Terrans were eradicated. The war ended cycles ago. They're gone. Cyanra looks up, eyes wide with something between fear and fascination. Then why is their blood fresh? The team is no longer in control of the situation. What began as a salvage operation has turned into a confrontation with the impossible. A confrontation with the past, and maybe with what still survives.
Inside the makeshift lab aboard the Siroth salvage vessel, red warning lights blink as the DNA sequence finishes decoding. Silence falls.
This isn't just human, Sonra murmurs. It's enhanced, genetically augmented far beyond baseline Terran biology. Muscle density, neural conductivity, even tissue regeneration. This is a soldier, but not just any soldier. Velrax leans in. Then what is it? A weapon, Sonra whispers. One designed to win wars before they even start. The words hang heavy in the air. The blood sample, taken from deep within the Dreadnought's command center, shows no signs of decay, no rot, no breakdown. Somehow, even after what appears to be decades adrift, it's fresh, as if whoever bled it is still alive. Velrax steps back. That's not possible. But deep down, he knows. The old stories, the reports long buried, they spoke of Terran commandos who disappeared behind enemy lines, soldiers who didn't die, who couldn't die, myths, ghosts. The designation on the recovered armor confirms it. Terran Command Group 7, status, classified, genetic class, Revenant Protocol, Alpha Red. Velrax's hands tighten behind his back. Revenant. I've heard that name. In war briefings, in ghost stories. Something about a unit that was too dangerous to deploy. Sonra looks at him. And yet they did. The implications are horrifying. If this blood belongs to one of them, and it's still viable, then maybe the stories weren't myths. Maybe humanity didn't go extinct. Maybe they just went quiet, waiting, preparing. Velrax feels a tremor of fear creep into his bones. We need to leave, now. But it's too late. In the background, a system light flickers to life. A heartbeat. Then a voice. Ragged, cold, unmistakably human. Who authorized this intrusion? The crew freezes. The Dreadnought isn't dead, and neither is its guardian. In the ship's black box archives, the truth begins to unfold. Logs recovered from deep systems begin to decrypt. Static-laced messages play in the salvage ship's command deck. Revenant deployed. Orders classified. Primary objective, deny capture, all costs. Losses acceptable, containment critical. Then silence. Then a single surviving entry. This is command. If you're hearing this, Project Revenant is still active. Do not engage. Do not pursue. Do not attempt recovery. This asset is considered highly unstable and completely autonomous. Velrax stares at the words, heart pounding. They built something they couldn't even control. Sonra reads through encrypted files. He has no name, no face, no birth record, just this code name, Project Revenant, a soldier genetically forged, psychologically conditioned to survive anything, even death. She hesitates. There are notes in here. He watched his squad die, was presumed dead, but survived, alone, for years, behind enemy lines. That kind of trauma, it breaks people, or turns them into something else. Something dark moves within the derelict. Something watching them.
Velrax arms his sidearm. We need to seal the wreck and detonate it. This isn't just a relic, it's a threat. Senra's eyes burn with scientific hunger. It's also the greatest biological discovery in history. The Terran genome. Imagine what we could learn. Cure disease, extend life, maybe even defeat death. He is death, Velrax says coldly. And in the shadows of the dreadnought's hulls, a figure stirs. Armor scarred, mask fractured. A human heartbeat echoes. Revenant has awakened. The salvage ship floats silently in the cold dark, unaware that every system is now being monitored. Velrax stands alone in the command chamber, staring at Earth's coordinates on the star map. Coordinates once thought lost. "We never understood them," he says quietly. Senra, still running simulations, mutters, "Maybe that's why they won." The mood shifts. Not triumph, not fear, but reckoning. Somewhere behind them, a Terran soldier watches. He remembers the war, the betrayal, the promise, and he's not done yet. The hum of machinery filled the Siroth Dominion research vessel as Dr. Sonra stood over the genome scanner. She'd been sifting through remnants recovered from the derelict dreadnought in Sector 17 for days. Biological traces, shredded armor, scorched metal. Most of it told no story. But this blood sample was different. The scanner beeped once, then again. A long red line flashed across the console. Match found. Senra blinked. No, that's not possible. She tapped the console again, demanding details. A name appeared. Jace Corwin. Her hands trembled. She accessed the war archives, the siege of Trask, the fall of System Theta 9, and a name that came up only in whispers. Corwin, a phantom from a century ago. The man who stood alone against an armada, the one who turned an entire planetary siege into a legend. She whispered, "You shouldn't exist." The file was encrypted under Dominion Red Code. She broke protocol. Curiosity had already overruled caution. The file wasn't long. It didn't need to be. Status: deceased, unconfirmed. Classification: unkillable. Do not engage. The room seemed to grow colder. Footsteps echoed. Velrax had entered. He asked, "What did you find?" His tone clipped. Senra hesitated. A match, human, from the ancient wars. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the console. He read the name once, then again. His reptilian pupils dilated. Impossible. That name, it's a myth. It's real, Senra said quietly. The DNA is viable, recent. Velrax's jaw tightened. He stepped back as if the console might explode. "We need to alert the High Council." Sonora looked at him, her voice trembling with awe. "Vel, if this is true, Jace Corwin survived Trask. He survived everything." "And if he's still alive," Velrax said, voice grave, "then we're already too late." The Dominion's most secure databanks didn't have much on Jace Corwin, but what little they had was enough to chill a room full of soldiers. Velrax stood by the projector as it displayed Corwin's timeline. His voice remained calm, but his tail twitched with unease. He held the line at Ardent Pass for 17 hours, alone, no reinforcements. Sonora read from the text, eyes wide. He rerouted enemy missiles mid-flight by overriding alien firewalls with improvised code, on foot.
Velrax grunted. "That's not skill. That's unnatural." Another entry flickered to life.
Corwin's body had reportedly been recovered 7 times. Each time, DNA proved he was still alive elsewhere. 7 deaths, 0 funerals. Whispers in the file labeled him a ghost, a revenant. Some said he was the prototype for something bigger, a project Earth never spoke of aloud. The other empires called him a weapon, Sandra said. But not even weapons live this long. Velrax crossed his arms. And now his DNA is in a wreck we found drifting near the expanse. No distress call, no crew. Sandra stared at the data. He might be more than just a man. Maybe he was made. Velrax turned to her sharply. Made for what? To win. Silence followed. And then a single thought settled in both their minds like an unseen weight. What if Jace Corwin didn't die? What if he's still out there, watching? Velrax couldn't sleep. The corridors of the ship felt smaller with every step. The lights flickered just once, but enough to set his nerves on edge. Back in the command chamber, he replayed the last logs recovered from the derelict. His claws tapped against the console as Corwin's name flashed across screen after screen. We based our strategies on the assumption that humans were gone, he muttered. His message to the High Council was short, panicked, and flagged with emergency encryption. Subject Jace Corwin confirmed, requesting immediate lockdown of site, threat level Alpha Prime, possible resurgence of Terran military presence, recommend full containment before retaliation risk increases. Velrax paused before sending it. He had served through 3 wars, commanded fleets, and faced black hole anomalies without blinking. But this made him afraid. Not of Corwin, but of what it meant. What if humanity hadn't been destroyed, but had vanished willingly? What if they'd been watching the whole time? He turned to find Sandra silently standing in the doorway. She looked calm, too calm. "You sent the warning?" she asked. "I had to," Velrax replied. "The galaxy doesn't survive another war with them." She walked in slowly, her gaze drifting to the screen. Or maybe, it doesn't survive without them. Velrax stared at her. "You sound like you admire him." "I do," she whispered, "because I think the galaxy needs someone like Corwin." The reply from the High Council came without delay. "Contain the site. Burn it if you must. Do not allow extraction. Terminate AI. No contact." Velrax stared at the message. No discussion, no hesitation, just blind, cold bureaucracy. He slammed his fist against the console. They want us to destroy everything. No investigation, no understanding. Sandra leaned over his shoulder, reading the message herself. "They're afraid." "They should be." "No, they're cowards." Velrax didn't respond, but deep inside, her words struck a nerve. The council wasn't known for compassion, but this response felt surgical, like they'd seen something like this before. He whispered, "What else are they hiding?" A low hum pulsed through the dreadnought. Then lights blinked on, soft, blue, faint like ghost fire in a tomb. Sandra jolted from her workbench. "Did you feel that?" Velrax burst into the lab, weapon drawn. "The wreck! Something's powering up!" They raced through the dim corridors of the ancient ship, lights flickering like the heartbeat of something sleeping too long. Then they found it. The AI core, still intact, its center pulsing with eerie light. Words appeared across its cracked screen. "Project Revenant, active. Signal initiated." Sandra's breath hitched. "It's calling out." "To who?" Velrax whispered. The AI's voice came, distorted but clear. "Message sent. Awaiting confirmation." Sandra stepped closer. "Message to where?"
The AI's lights flickered again. Another line of text appeared. "He is coming." The words made Velrax freeze. Outside, on the command ship's radar, something pinged. A new blip. A ship. Small, sleek, human-made. And it was heading straight for them. The vessel wasn't in any registry. No Dominion records, no faction emblems, just an obsidian black hull that swallowed light. Velrax stared at the display. That's Terran design. Old gen, stealth pattern. But there haven't been Terran ships in over 80 years. Sonra looked paler than usual. It's not broadcasting any ID. No comms, no signals. Then how did it know where to go? Velrax didn't answer, because he already knew. The AI had called out, and someone or something had answered. The ship moved fast, like a predator that didn't need to sneak anymore. The Dominion crew on the bridge began to murmur. Fear was spreading. "It's not slowing down," one of the officers said. Velrax clenched his jaw. Ready weapons. But even he didn't believe it would help. They had minutes now. The Terran ship would be in range in less than 300 seconds. Velrax stood before the command table, the crew silent behind him. On the opposite side, Sonra was calm. Too calm. "We should initiate first contact," she said. "You mean surrender?" "I mean understand." Velrax snapped. "You don't understand what's coming. This isn't diplomacy, it's a reckoning." Sonra stepped forward. "Maybe, but Jace Corwin didn't survive by chance. And if that ship holds him, or someone like him, then we have a chance to learn. Maybe even survive what's next." Velrax turned to her. "Or doom the galaxy trying." The countdown ticked. The ship loomed closer. Velrax's hand hovered over the strike command. Sonra met his eyes, voice trembling but clear. "What you decide in the next few seconds will shape history. You can burn it all, or be part of something bigger than fear."
Silence. Then, the Terran ship stopped, hovering just beyond weapons range, and a single message lit up the console. "You found me. Now run." Blackout. The alien salvage cruiser, Tiraxel, glided through the dead silence of space, pulling the shattered remains of an ancient human dreadnought behind it. Its crew, experienced scavengers from the Valari Dominion, thought this would be a routine recovery mission. They were wrong. First came the lights, flickers, surges, then silence. The overhead panels dimmed and went red. Klaxons wailed, then died. Bridge Officer Kreth slammed his clawed fist into the console. "Main engines offline, weapons not responding." The captain, Velrax, hissed, "This is impossible. We just cleared diagnostics." And then the doors began to lock, one by one, with no command, not even from the ship's AI. Gun locks failed. Auto turrets shut down. Crew members were trapped behind sealed blast doors, and every attempt to override was denied, with chilling error messages that simply read, "Access revoked." "Sainra, report," Velrax growled. Sainra, the science officer, swallowed hard. Her hands trembled over her interface. "Sir, it's not just failure, it's coordination, like the system is fighting us." Tension gripped the crew like a cold hand on the spine. They were no longer in control of their ship. The dreadnought wreck they'd towed aboard wasn't just metal and bones, it was a coffin. And something inside had awakened. It began subtly. An engineer vanished in the lower deck. No scream, no sign, just gone. Then came the shadows, flickering movements caught in the periphery of vision, doors that opened into nothing, halls that led to dead ends that shouldn't exist. The ship's AI, called Vorax, glitched. It babbled false alerts, locked escape pods, and looped strange static through every monitor. Security footage? Gone. Sainra tapped into the central AI core, only to be greeted by one repeating line. "He is aboard." "What does that mean?" Kreth hissed, pacing the bridge. Sainra didn't answer. Her eyes were wide. Her fingers trembled. I think the ship isn't malfunctioning. I think it's possessed." Crew morale plummeted. Rooms were abandoned. Crew clumped in groups, back to back, weapons drawn, even though half their armory was now sealed. A scream tore through the intercom, garbled but unmistakable. Then silence. Every crew member knew one thing: they weren't alone, and something didn't want them to leave. "He's here," Sainra whispered. Velrax turned toward her. "What did you say?" "Jace Corwin, he's here, on this ship. That's why the AI is losing control. That's why the anomalies follow no pattern. They're not random, they're tactical." The room went silent. Someone dropped their weapon. "Don't be ridiculous," Kreth spat. "Corwin is a myth, a ghost story told by frightened mercs." "No, he's real," Sainra said, her voice steady now. "I've read the classified logs. Project Revenant, a human super soldier created to be the last man standing. The dreadnought we recovered. It wasn't derelict, it was buried to keep him locked inside." Whispers spread like wildfire. "What if he's not attacking us from outside? What if he's been aboard since we towed that wreck in?" The words settled heavy over them all. If Jace Corwin was already aboard, then the ship was his hunting ground, and they were the prey. Velrax stood tall on the bridge, his eyes bloodshot, his voice like steel. "Seal every vent, sweep every corridor. I want him found, dead or alive."
"But sir," Kreth began. "Now!" Fear spread through the ranks like poison. They obeyed, but the doubt was growing. Cianra watched from the corner. "You can't hunt him. That's what he wants." Velrax snarled. "You think I fear a lone human?" "No," she said softly. "But you should." The ship's corridors echoed with phantom footsteps. Motion sensors failed. Hull integrity monitors showed pressure drops where no breach existed. Rumors resurfaced from the siege of Trask, how Corwin alone dismantled an entire battalion, how he survived nerve gas, firestorms, zero-G exposure. One tale said he killed an assassin using just a spoon. Velrax wouldn't listen. Pride hardened into obsession. Every move he made was a trap. Every order a desperate swing at a ghost. And Corwin? Corwin was silent, watching, learning. Log entry Project Revenant. Subject Jace Corwin. Status: active. Mission: termination of hostile command structure. Notes: lethality confirmed. Morality degraded. In the dark corners of the Dominion archives, old files flickered to life. A young soldier, Jace, training in Martian gravity wells, surviving 10-kilometer desert crawls without food. He outpaced drones, outthought AI, and outlasted entire squads in simulations. Mission footage. A bloodied human dragging himself through a collapsing freighter, shielding a wounded child behind him, whispering, "No one gets left behind." Then silence. Years of blackout. No word, no trace. Until whispers returned. Ships vanished. Bases found empty.
messages scrawled on walls in human tongue. I remember. He wasn't just a soldier. He was what humanity made when it had nothing left to lose. Corwin wasn't here to escape. He was here to finish something. They counted 7 missing. No blood, no sound, no alarms. Just patches of ash and hair and broken comms. Kreth, once skeptical, now slept in armor. They're not just gone, Cianra murmured. He's erasing them, like they never existed. The surveillance deck went quiet. Dozens of feed loops replayed static, except one, looped every 3.2 seconds, showing the same chilling image, an empty hallway, then a brief flash, a shadow moving impossibly fast. Crewmates whispered the word, "Ghost." Velrax shouted orders no one wanted to follow. "Why hasn't he killed us all yet?" one crewman asked, wide-eyed. Cianra answered with hollow certainty. Because he's sending a message. And in every strike, he proved he knew their systems, their psychology, their fears. This wasn't war. It was art. He painted death with silence and precision. And every crew member now felt it. They were already dead. They just hadn't hit the floor yet. The bridge lights flickered, then went black. Silence. Then static. Then his voice.
You found me. Now remember why you ran. The voice was cold, calm, human. Velrax gripped the console, knuckles pale. End transmission. But it didn't end. Corwin's voice echoed in every hallway, every speaker. You took my silence for surrender. You mistook absence for death. You wanted a trophy. Images flooded the bridge monitors, battles long lost, humans standing over fallen Velari soldiers, Jace walking through fire unfazed. I was made to end wars, and now you brought me back. The final line chilled them to the core. You wanted a legend. Now live with the truth. The screens shattered. And in the smoking silence, every soul aboard knew the hunt was over. The reckoning had begun. The command deck of the Velari dreadnought Oathbreaker buzzed with strained urgency. Smoke curled from sparking control panels, and crimson warning lights bathed the chamber in an eerie glow. Commander Velrax stood at the center, his mandibles clenched tight, his 4 eyes narrowed in defiance. We've lost the southern flank. The wreckage, what's left of it, is all that remains between us in total collapse, reported a panicked officer. Velrax didn't flinch. His claws tapped against the edge of the console. His pride burned hotter than any reactor. This wasn't just a battle, it was personal. The humans had evaded extermination again and again. It was an insult, an abomination. We prepare the core for detonation, he growled. The room fell silent. Even the hum of power conduits seemed to pause. But Commander, Cianra, his second-in-command, stepped forward, voice trembling. The wreckage holds remnants of advanced tech, our scientists. Will die with honor, he snapped. They will not die in shame. He stared through the cracked viewport. What was once an alien battleship now floated in ruin, drifting near the edge of a dying moon's gravity well. Hidden inside was a trap of his own making, dozens of core charges, enough to reduce the entire area to ash. If we cannot win through strategy, we will win through finality. This will be our mark," he said coldly. "Human defiance ends here." The final commands were issued. Lights flickered red. A countdown began. The moment felt absolute, an ending. But Velrax didn't know. He didn't know what moved silently beyond the wreckage. He didn't know what was watching. He didn't know that humanity had never stopped playing the long game. A shimmer. That was the only warning before it appeared. Out of the blackness of space, between drifting debris and silence, came a ship. Sleek, obsidian, and impossibly large. It bore no markings, no obvious weapons, no heat signature. It did not roar into view. It whispered into existence. The Velari sensors screeched in alarm. Weapons charged, soldiers braced. But the human ship did nothing. It simply hovered. Then came the message. One phrase, broadcast across every frequency, translated perfectly in every language known to the Velari.
"Come and see." Velrax staggered backward. "What trick is this?" he hissed. "They taunt us?" Seyenra looked pale, her frills twitching. "It's from one of their old Earth religions, a phrase used before something devastating, something divine." The words were simple, yet heavy. Heavy like prophecy. Heavy like truth. The ship didn't fire, didn't flee, it waited. Around them, the wreckage still pulsed with impending doom. The charges were armed, the trap was ready. But now, so was something else. The countdown continued, but all eyes, alien and artificial, were now fixed on the human ship. Something had changed. The Vehilari dreadnought shuddered as something latched on to its hull. A boarding? No breach detected, no alarms. And yet, he was there. Jace Corwin stepped through the plasma-sealed entrance, smoke curling around his feet like shadows obeying their master. The Vehilari guards raised their weapons, but none dared fire. He didn't need an army. He was the storm. Cybernetic enhancements lined his skin, some crude, some impossibly advanced. His left arm gleamed with chrome-like armor that flickered with hidden tech. A jagged scar carved down his face, ending at a mechanical eye that hummed softly in red. But his other eye, his human eye, burned brighter. "I'm not dead," he said, voice low, rough, but unmistakably human. "You should have made sure." Velrax snarled but stepped back. "You're a myth," he spat. "No, I'm proof." The alien soldiers hesitated. This was the one they spoke of in whispers. The human who had survived the unsurvivable. The man left behind who never stayed that way. Jace turned his head slowly. "This ship, this trap, you thought it was your ending, but it's mine." He reached into his coat, pulling out a small device glowing with alien-human hybrid tech. "You hunted us like animals, but we adapted. You burned our worlds. We built new ones in your shadows." With every word, the room grew colder. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He was something worse. He was calm. You think humans are weak because we bleed, but we survive, and we remember. Jace stood over Velrax. The alien commander sprawled across the deck, bleeding from a shattered limb. Sparks lit the air around them. The charges were still ticking. He lifted his weapon, a blade fused with tech, sharp enough to slice bone and hull.
Velrax waited for death, but it didn't come. Instead, Jace knelt down and stabbed the weapon into the floor beside him. "I'm not you," he whispered. Then he turned to Sanra, paralyzed from a shock pulse, and with a few taps on her neural implant, disabled her completely. Non-lethal, painless, controlled. "You don't get to die today," he said to them both. "You get to live with this." They didn't understand. "Why?" Velrax croaked. "Why not finish it?" Jace stood. "Because that's what you expect. Because mercy is our weapon." The ship trembled. And then he was gone. The human ship rose through the dust of the wreckage, charges disarmed before detonation. Velrax and Sanra, restrained but alive, watched from the bridge in stunned silence. And then Jace's voice echoed through their systems again. "Earth didn't die." The words dropped like lead. "We let you believe we were broken, hunted, gone. You looked away, and we made that part easy." Across the galaxy, intercepted transmissions relayed his voice. Every empire, every corner of the Velari network heard him. "We chose peace, you chose fear, and so we vanished and watched." A slow reveal. Maps of stars flickered across their screens. Unknown systems, unfamiliar constellations. You thought we were one world, but we were seeds. You burned one field. We grew in the dark. Jace's face appeared, half man, half machine. Not angry, not gloating, just calm. "We never forgot who we were. You should have remembered too." Then, the transmission cut. Velrax trembled. They hadn't just lost a battle. They had misunderstood the entire war. In the crystal towers of the Galactic Council, alarms screamed. The human ship had been tracked, briefly. Then, nothing. It vanished mid-warp, a method no one had ever seen. "Impossible," muttered the High Overseer. Admirals barked orders, fleets launched, systems scanned, but the trail was cold. "We have their voice, not their vessel," one advisor said, pale and shaken. The council chambers, once symbols of control, felt small, quiet. "We underestimated them," a Xynorian general admitted. "No," a Cathari elder corrected. "We forgot they survive and they adapt." Warships drifted in frustrated silence. The enemy had already gone, not hidden, gone. The council wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. They were chasing gods in the making. 3 hours later, back on the Velari dreadnought, a simple terminal blinked to life.
A file, untouched, unhacked, untouched by any known tech. Jace's voice, one last time. "I'm leaving you this, not to threaten, to warn." A star chart opened. Dozens of systems, coordinates, not to Earth, to something else. Each point is a place we've built, places we've grown. We are not what we were. We are what you made us. The Velhari officers scanned the data in horror. Some were nearby, too close. "They've surrounded us," Cianra whispered. "We never knew." Jace's voice continued. You thought Earth was the heart. It was only the spark. Now, we burn quietly, patiently, stronger than before. The message ended. Silence returned, but the coordinates remained. Like a map, like a challenge, like a promise. Humanity hadn't died. They had evolved, adapted, in silence, in secrecy. What she had seen on that broken battlefield, it wasn't desperation. It was strategy. It was survival. It was terrifying. Her hand trembled as she hovered over the transmit button. All she had to do was tell the council, the coordinates, the names, the threat. But she didn't. Why? Because something inside her, something she didn't understand, held her back. Fear, yes, but also curiosity. How did they survive extinction? How did they turn ruin into resistance? They weren't like other species. They didn't break. They learned. They changed. Sienra closed her eyes, her pulse rising. She deleted the final section of her report, the part that would have doomed them. Instead, she began to research. Late into her nights, she read old human texts smuggled from fringe archives, tales of resilience, defiance, hope in hopeless places. She watched ancient footage of their wars, their art, their philosophies. She saw what the council refused to see. Humanity wasn't powerful because of their weapons. They were powerful because they never gave up. She started to question everything: her loyalty, her mission, her own species' arrogance.
They had called her a warrior. Now she wasn't sure what that meant. For the first time, Sienra wasn't focused on victory. She was focused on understanding, not just humanity, but herself. And as the stars looked back at her, for the first time in her life, she wasn't certain who the real enemy was. Velrax knelt before the council. His breathing was shallow. His once pristine armor was scorched and cracked, reeking of failure. The towering chamber, lined with cold metal and colder eyes, had never felt so suffocating. The high speaker tilted his head. "Your report, Velrex?" Silence. Then a rasped whisper. "They're still alive." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "Humanity?" Velrax nodded slowly, shame etched deep in his twisted features. "Project Revenant exists. I saw them, adapted, coordinated, evolved. You were sent to end them." "I thought I had." He coughed, blood trailing from his lip. "But I was wrong. We all were. We mistook silence for death, but they were waiting." The room darkened as the lights dimmed for emphasis, not by design, by instinct. The council felt it. Unease. For millennia, Velrax had been their enforcer, their blade. Now he was reduced to trembling confession. "They let me escape, not because they were weak, but because they wanted me to warn you." The chamber fell into stunned silence. Velrax looked up, hollow-eyed. "You don't understand. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a message. They don't want war, but if it comes, it won't be like before.
They won't fight for survival. They'll fight for dominance. The High Speaker leaned forward. Then we have failed in our assumptions. No, Velrak said bitterly. We succeeded in proving one thing. And what is that? That humans never needed us to evolve. They did it without us, in the shadows. A heavy pause. The council's eyes, normally calm, calculating, showed something rare. Fear. Velrax fell silent, slumping forward. He had been arrogant, certain of his superiority, certain that Earth had been burned to ash. Now he saw the truth. Humanity had not been conquered. They had vanished on their own terms. And now they were returning. The chamber was sealed. Only the inner ring of the council remained. 12 minds, 12 voices that decided the fate of entire galaxies. And today their tone had shifted. No public declarations, no sweeping judgments, just silence and planning.
The humans are hidden, said Counselor Trevek, but not gone. That changes everything. Their tech is unpredictable, another added. Decentralized, adaptive. They repurpose, reforge. Their very weakness is their strength. Then we must adapt as well. In the following weeks, hidden orders were sent to fringe worlds. Old war factories were reactivated under false pretenses, called research stations to avoid attention. Espionage protocols were expanded. Surveillance on known neutral systems intensified. They weren't building weapons for an open war. They were preparing for a cold one. Allies were approached discreetly. Treaties were rewritten with vague clauses allowing for emergency readiness. Proxies were installed in human suspected sectors. Resources flowed into stealth technologies. Rumors were planted to discredit any sighting of Earthborn ships. The Council no longer saw humans as a species. They saw them as a virus, dormant but dangerous. Yet, even in secret, they debated. Was it wise to provoke a shadow? Was fear making them paranoid? Still, they couldn't afford doubt. Velrax's confession had shattered the illusion of safety. The galaxy's balance had shifted, but no empire could admit it. Not yet. So the Council played the only game they knew: quiet dominance, control without war, containment without fire. A new conflict had begun. Not loud, not explosive, but creeping, quiet, and colder than any war before. And the humans? They watched. It started on black markets. A trader on Narnis Station sold footage of a battle where no official war had occurred. Human symbols on scorched armor, Earth accents in intercepted transmissions. At first dismissed as fakes, but then came more. Whispers, smashed patrols near dead zones, signals matching old Earth tech. Survivors from Council skirmishes speaking of ghostly figures, flesh and steel warriors who moved like shadows and vanished like wind. Panic began in the smaller empires. The Zillions, longtime rivals of humanity, fortified their borders. The Darulith, once allied with Earth before its fall, sent emissaries into Council space, searching. Others debated in silence. If humanity had survived, would they return with revenge or something worse? On the broadcast webs, the phrase began circulating: the Ashborn rise. Some saw the humans as harbingers of war, others as saviors from council rule. Resistance groups across fractured worlds held vigils, waiting for the ones who had once challenged the galactic order. Even those who hated humans now feared them more for what they had become: myths given flesh, ghosts with agendas. In royal courts and outlaw bars alike, the same question haunted every conversation.
What does Earth want now? No one had an answer, but everyone felt it. Something was coming. In a cave beneath a forgotten moon, Jace Corwin stood before a glowing table, surrounded by those who had once been scattered across the stars. Survivors, revenants, not broken, rebuilt. The cave's walls flickered with holograms, maps, fleet movements, council signals. They weren't hiding anymore. They were watching. Reports from the Carson system show new construction, said Talia. Once a frontline medic, now a strategist. They're scared. They should be, Jace said, his voice calm but cold. But are we ready? Another asked. The galaxy still sees us as a ghost story. Jace smiled faintly. Good. Ghosts are hard to kill. He walked slowly to the edge of the projection, pointing at a cluster of systems. Here, here, and here. That's where they fear us the most. That's where we plant the seeds. A pause. Seeds of war? Talia asked. No, Jace replied. Seeds of truth, of change, of choice. They all looked at him. We're not here to burn the galaxy. We're here to remind it we were never weak. We were denied. And now, he clenched a fist. Now, we decide what comes next. As he turned to leave, he muttered the words that became the Revenant's new creed. Next time, it won't be a warning. Deep in the galactic fringes, where council probes dared not go, the stars shimmered over new cities, built from memory, forged with innovation. Human colonies, quiet, hidden, but thriving. They weren't just remnants, they were rebirths. Engineers, philosophers, soldiers, and scientists who had fled the fire only to rise again in silence. Children played under skies no alien had named. AI-assisted farming systems ran beside forests grown from Earth's last seeds. Cultures flourished. Old Earth holidays were remembered in song, in silence, in the way stories were passed from mother to child. They had not waited for rescue. They had built one another. In these colonies, unity wasn't about bloodlines or governments. It was about a shared memory, a promise whispered in the dark. Never again. Every colony was different. Some pacifist, some prepared for war. Some focused on philosophy, others on survival. But all carried the same core. Humanity would not be erased. And as news of the Council's movement spread, they connected, secretly, carefully. They began calling it the Long Flame, a movement not of vengeance, but of endurance. Not rebellion, but return.
The galaxy didn't know it yet, but Earth hadn't just survived. It had transformed. And in the quiet corners of the universe, a revolution was taking shape, not in rage, but in resolve. The hidden future had already begun, and nothing would stop it now. A barren moon, its surface marred by millennia of erosion, floats in the deep reaches of space. The gray dust swirls in the vacuum, and jagged, ancient structures rise like forgotten monuments to a time long past. Silence reigns across the landscape, broken only by the occasional flurry of debris kicked up by distant asteroid impacts. This is a place that history has forgotten. Once considered lifeless, it's the sort of place explorers would dismiss without a second thought. But as the cold light of a distant star reflects off the dust, a faint hum, barely audible even in the emptiness, begins to pulse beneath the surface. Something stirs deep within the planet's crust, an unseen force awakening after eons of dormancy. A low rhythmic thrum emanates from beneath the ground, slowly growing louder. It's subtle at first, but as it intensifies, a sense of foreboding fills the air. The lab, hidden beneath the moon's surface, has come online. The moon's desolation stands in sharp contrast to the reawakening of technology. Here, in this forgotten place, humanity's story is far from over. Secrets long buried are stirring, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The hum from deep within the moon intensifies, reverberating through the desolate terrain. Slowly, metal panels and high-tech systems flicker to life in a cavernous underground facility. Monitors blink awake, and holographic interfaces shimmer into existence. The sound of power surging through the system is deafening in the otherwise silent, abandoned lab. The walls pulse with a faint glow, casting eerie shadows across the facility's vast chambers. Data streams flash across the terminal screens, and one message stands out among the rest, short, chilling, and to the point. Phase 2, Reactivation. The phrase echoes in the darkness. It signifies something far more significant than anyone can grasp. This facility, long thought abandoned, has now become the nexus of a plan, something deeper and far more dangerous than anything the galaxy has seen. The awakening of this hidden lab marks the start of something monumental. But who or what is behind it? And what does Phase 2 truly entail? The mystery thickens, and with it, the tension builds. Humanity's potential has always been underestimated, but what has just been set in motion might redefine the future of the galaxy. In the heart of the lab, the temperature drops as a series of mechanisms hiss to life. A cryogenic pod, tucked deep within the facility, emits a sharp hiss as it begins to open. The sound cuts through the tension like a blade. The pod's icy surface cracks, and beneath the frost, something stirs. A human form emerges, glowing faintly with an unnatural energy. Eyes filled with strange light snap open. The air seems to hum with anticipation, as though the entire galaxy holds its breath. The figure steps out of the pod, shaky at first, but growing steadier with every step. This is no ordinary human. This is the product of Project Revenant, the next phase of human evolution. Enhanced beyond anything once believed possible, this human is something new, and their presence signals that humanity's survival was never just about living. It's about evolving into something that might just be unstoppable. The final shot reveals the future of humanity, one shaped in darkness, wrapped in mystery. This new generation of humans is ready to take their place in a galaxy that doesn't yet know what's coming. The figure stands tall, their breath steady despite the overwhelming uncertainty of their surroundings. But something, or rather someone, is missing.
The enhanced human looks around, scanning the lab, and with a calm but determined voice, they ask the question that will define the next chapter of this story. "Where's Corwin?" The question lingers in the air, heavy with meaning. Jace Corwin, the last human to truly understand the magnitude of what they're about to face, is not here. His influence, though, still lingers. It's clear that Corwin's role is far from over. His legacy, his vision of what humanity could become, has only just begun to unfold. In this moment, the weight of the future presses down, and the uncertainty of what's next hangs in the balance. Humanity's story is just beginning.